Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Video Game Memories. It has been a while, so there's no better way to start off with the franchise called Final Fantasy. It is one of my favourite franchises ever in the world. It is the pinnacle of RPGs. It is the mascot of RPGs. You think of RPGs, you think of Final Fantasy. It is the Rolls Royce of RPGs. I'm going to tell you how the franchise began. Back in 1987, a games company called Square, they'd released a few games but they'd gone bust. So they thought they may as well use the last of their money to finish off the last game that they are making, and this game was going to be the last. The game was called Fighting Fantasy. F-I-G-H-T-I-N-G. Fighting Fantasy. Anyway, after they made the game, they decided to change the title to Final Fantasy. And they called it Final Fantasy from Fighting Fantasy because it was the final game they were ever going to make. The game did so well, they made enough money to spawn a sequel, Final Fantasy II, in 1989. In 1989, I think Final Fantasy II came out. And then the series grew on from there. They became pretty rich, and they're still going to this day. They've changed their name. They're now known as Squareenix. My personal attachment to the franchise, I will admit I was a little bit late getting in there. The first Final Fantasy that we ever got in Europe was Final Fantasy VII, and that was back in 1997. Final Fantasy 1 through 26 never released in this country. I didn't even jump on board at the 7th one. I had been around friends' houses, I've seen them play it. I didn't really think much of it, to be honest with you. But then in I think it was actually the tail end of 1998, Final Fantasy VIII got released. Final Fantasy VIII was the first Final Fantasy that I personally ever played. I got it for the original PlayStation 1. I fell in love with it. It was absolutely brilliant. It's got a bit of a funny junctioning system and drawing from enemies. If you'll know what I'm talking about if you know the game. Yeah, that was a bit of a nuisance, but I still loved it. I loved the score, I loved the characters, I loved the storyline. Everything like that was absolutely fantastic. 2 years later, in 2000, we got Final Fantasy IX. And they went back to the old medieval style and things like that. That was absolutely fantastic. That would be the last game on the original PlayStation. Me and a good friend of mine, we downloaded emulators for the PC, so we were able to play Final Fantasy 1 through 6. We played each and every one of them. We specifically fell in love with 4. 4 was absolutely fantastic. 4 today is one of my favourites, and I think it always will be. It's going to be really difficult for me to put a finger on my absolute favourite. I don't think I can do that. I mean, look, I've even got 13 here. A lot of people don't like 13. I personally really love 13. I love everything about it. I mean, okay, it is a bit linear. It is kind of like walking through a long hallway. But at the end of the day, it does open up towards the end of the game. I love the characters in it. I love the music in it. I love the story in it. More importantly, I love the gameplay, I love the battle system, it's all really well done. Final Fantasy X and X-2 got a HD remaster, which came out for the PlayStation 3 originally, I think in 2013. In 2015, it got released again for the PlayStation 4. And then in 2018, it got released again for the Nintendo Switch. Final Fantasy 13.2 came out February of 2012. This game was really good. It actually had a lot more freedom than what Final Fantasy 13 did. And in this one, you take control of the protagonist's younger sister, in this game, Sarah. This was very good. The tail end of 2016, I got Final Fantasy 15. This was for the PlayStation 4. This was a major jump forward. It was a huge open world game. You could do anything in any order. It was fantastic. The summons in it just look absolutely amazing. They look real. It was absolutely fantastic. I've got Final Fantasy 3 here. They did a remake of it. They released it for the Nintendo DS. I don't have every Final Fantasy physical, unfortunately. I do own every Final Fantasy game, but a lot of them are digital. Some of my best memories goes to Final Fantasy X when that released originally in the year of 2000. No, sorry, 2001. And it was the first game in the franchise to use voice acting and everything like that. And it had a major step up in graphics from Final Fantasy 7, 8 and 9, which were on the PlayStation 1. Because this one originally released on the PlayStation 2. It went from 32-bit to 128-bit. So you can imagine the 4 times, difference. Some of my earliest memories, as you know, go back to 8. Later memories with 4 because we didn't download emulators until after I played Final Fantasy 8. Recently, in 2020, March of 2020, believe it or not, Final Fantasy 7 saw a remake. Something that fans have been crying out for years and years and years. Well, we got it for the PlayStation 4. I would like to see other remakes. It is absolutely fantastic. It came out, I finished it in 4 days. I was just always on it. I tried to do everything I could do in it. I didn't platinum it, but I'm very close to it. But definitely Final Fantasy VII Remake is one go-to. We have had recently announced Final Fantasy 16 on the recent PlayStation 5 games showcase. Final Fantasy 16 is on the horizon. It's been in development for 4 years at this time of October 2020. I doubt it, but I'm really hoping it comes out next year. I've got a funny feeling it's going to be 2022. At the worst, it's going to be 2023. It should be out by then. But, fingers crossed for next year. Please make it happen. I've got many nostalgic memories with this franchise. I've been playing the games since I was, I'd say 14 actually. 14 years old playing these games. And there's not really a franchise out there I like better. If I had to put one first, I think it will always be Final Fantasy. I think that's probably going to wrap it up for this episode. Otherwise, I'm going to be ranting for a long time. But if you want to follow me on social media, which I'll put just up here, at mattdoesgaming5, you can do that. Or if you like, you can email me at mattdoesgaming5. So, anyways guys, until the next one,